Hi, Nora.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm glad you're here. How was your weekend?
Pretty good.
Good, good. All right. Well, let's see here. What time is it? 5:03. Yeah, we can go ahead and get started. And then I'll just mute you, and then after class I'll unmute and we'll see if there's any questions and see how you're doing. All right.
Okay.
All right, here we go. Okay, so let's start off with some common words. Here we go. Ready? Allow, several, aren't, during, empty, lady, eyebrow, strange, coffee, road, through, wide, bus, forget, gotten, fear, press, blonde, boyfriend, smell, round, sun, tall, glad, age, right, upon, hide, became, crowd, rain, save, trouble, annoy, nose, weird, death, beat, tone, trip, 6, control, nearly, consider, gonna, join, learn, above, high, barely, obviously, 20, entire, asleep, song, doctor, edge, strong, direction, foot, power, angry. All right, let's do our phrase review and focus on whether or not. For those of you that are in the lower speeds, whether or not is WHRORN, and you want to phrase as much as possible. All right. And a lot of these have the shall phrases. So anything like we shall, you can use the final RB. All right. Here we go. Ready? Shall recollect, you shall remember, shall recall, shall understand, shall want, she shall, it shall, how shall, so I shall, so you shall, that he shall, that I shall, that you shall, there shall, they shall, this shall, we shall, what he shall, what I shall, what you shall, when he shall, when I shall, when you shall, whether he shall, whether I shall, where he shall, where I shall, where shall, where you shall, whether he shall, whether I shall, whether or not he shall, whether or not I shall, whether or not you shall, whether you shall, which he shall, which shall, which I shall, which you shall, who shall, you shall, she been, she believed, she believes, she can, she cannot, she could, she ever, she feels, she felt. All right. I've got a number drill for you. This is going to be items and numbers. Here we go. Ready? Potatoes, 374,923. Beans, 742,325. Rice, 831,306. Nuts, 29,564,784. Wool, 13,927,234. Oats, 2,462,847. Cotton, 121,544. Radishes, 7,898,785. Beets, 4,195,516. Celery, 42,765,703. Barley, 44,732,990. Fruit, 73,610,850. Linseed, 25,946,987. Corn, 23,784,635. All right. Our next drill is going to focus on the following briefs: accident, which is final X, automobile, AUBL, and damage, DAJ. And here are your sentences. Ready? There was a bad accident at the corner. There are too many accidents at that intersection. Did you really see the accident occur? He tried to avoid looking at the accident. Were you badly hurt in the accident? He has had too many accidents in that car. Accidents can be avoided by using care. There are many accidents at the corner. Was his presence here accidental? Are you saying it was accidental? Don't even suggest it was accidental. Peter said that it was an accidental meeting. We came upon the scene accidentally. They really met him quite accidentally. The child broke the dish accidentally. I know that did not occur accidentally. Was there much damage to your car? The property damage was extensive. The damage to the automobile was minor. Report all of the damage which you saw. It was an accidental meeting. I like the style of that automobile. I ended up with damaged goods. The accident caused major damage. His conduct is damaging his reputation. How damaging was his story of the accident? Overheating is damaging the machine. That is certainly damaging to her credibility. That automobile gets good gas mileage. The new automobile runs very well. I really need to buy a new automobile. Design automobiles that will use less gas. I want to get a much smaller automobile. There were 2 automobiles ahead of me. Look at all the automobiles parked there. Park your automobiles across the street. You should return the damaged merchandise. Ship the damaged goods back today. How was the back fence damaged? The car was damaged beyond repair. The award for damages was appealed. What is Richard asking in damages? He sued the company for punitive damages. I think those damages are too high. It is a late model automobile. He was accidentally pushed aside. She felt she had to drive a large automobile. It came through the accident undamaged. All right. Focusing on some consonant compounds that start with initial BL and initial BR. Here we go. Ready? Bruce bragged about his brain power. She brandished the broom at the mouse. The bracket is made of polished brass. Blair saw that the pretty bride was a brunette. Please sharpen the blunt blade of the knife. Nancy Blake will blush quite easily. He knew that the blood in veins is blue. The wind blew away the blank sheet. He told Blair to take a deep breath and blow. Don't blame him for breaking the brickwork. A branch library is a block away from here. They braved the blistering heat of the day. The bruise was turning black and blue. And the brief for black and blue is BLAB, blab. So let me say it again. The bruise was turning black and blue. The bright lights of the car blinded him. Brenda Brewer blushes quite easily. Brad Blake brought the brace for the wall. All right. We've got one drill left before we start our narrative answer. This is going to be a brief review. It's going to focus on number, NUR, position, POGS, opportunity, TUNT, tomorrow, TORM. Here we go. Ready? What is your position on the new numbering plan? There are a number of new opportunities. What is the opportunity for advancement? A number of them will not be here tomorrow. Did he take that position? The numbers have increased. Have you had the opportunity? He always puts it off until tomorrow. The numbers preclude coming up with a simple plan. You will have an opportunity tomorrow. The numbers preclude that plan. That numbering system won't work. There are a number of positions open. What opportunities do the positions offer? Change the position. All numbering should be at the top. We don't know what the position of the board will be. There are opportunities to increase the numbers. All right. Now, moving on to narrative answer. I'm going to read this one time at 60, again at 80, and then again at 100 because it's only about a paragraph long. All right. So the first time will be at 60, and then we'll do it again at 80, and then again at the last time at 100. All right, here we go. Narrative answer. Ready? I sent a dress suit and 3 pairs of shoes. Mr. Lewis informed the court the last time we were in court that he had sufficient clothing that he bought for John. I picked John up 3 days later. He was still wearing the same underwear and socks that I sent him in. So I took him home and set up a full wardrobe. Slacks, pants, underwear, socks, tennis shoes. He has a sport jacket and he has a dress suit. He has 3 pairs of slacks, good slacks. Then he has dress shoes, play shoes, and tennis shoes. He has shirts and slacks that he wears for playing. When he goes to school in the winter, he must have a certain amount of clothing because he will outgrow it. The boy is growing. All right, so I'm going to read that one more time. Well, again, once at 80 and again at 100. Here we go. Ready? I sent a dress suit and 3 pairs of shoes. Mr. Lewis informed the court the last time we were in court that he had sufficient clothing that he bought for John. I picked John up 3 days later. He was still wearing the same underwear and socks that I sent him in. So I took him home and set up a full wardrobe: slacks, pants, underwear, socks, tennis shoes. He has a sport jacket and he has a dress suit. He has 3 pairs of slacks, good slacks. Then he has dress shoes, play shoes, and tennis shoes. He has shirts and slacks that he wears for playing. When he goes to school in the winter, he must have a certain amount of clothing because he will outgrow it. The boy is growing. All right, so the last time will be at 100. Here we go. Ready? I sent a dress suit and 3 pairs of shoes. Mr. Lewis informed the court the last time we were in court that he had sufficient clothing that he bought for John. I picked John up 3 days later. He was still wearing the same underwear and socks that I sent him in. So I took him home and set up a full wardrobe: slacks, pants, underwear, socks, tennis shoes. He has a sport jacket and he has a dress suit. He has 3 pairs of slacks, good slacks. Then he has dress shoes, play shoes, and tennis shoes. He has shirts and slacks that he wears for playing. When he goes to school in the winter, he must have a certain amount of clothing because he will outgrow it. The boy is growing. All right. Moving right into some jury charge. All right. I'm going to start this at 60 and work my way up to 100. Okay. Let me give you a word list. You're going to hear conclusions, discussions, organizing, confused, favorable, connected, and the brief for connect is KEK, restrictions, enforced, interested, and the brief for interest is initial TR, disinterested, client, details, blended, defender, and the brief for defend is either DEFT or just D final FT and leave out the E, story, attorney, and that is TORN. Of course, is final FK. In this case, is written as NIK, Nick. And then, of course, Nick, he would flag. Let's see, evidence, EFD. And you're going to hear escort, bailiff. The brief for bailiff is B-L-I-F, bliff. Original, O-R-J. Foreperson. You're going to hear, of course, a few times. So you want to make sure and use that phrase, which is final FK. You can phrase if you have, FU final V. Deliberation is written as D-L long A-G-S, delation. Juror, I write that as J-A-O-R. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I'll start at 60 and work my way to 100. Here we go, ready? Members of the jury, you and I are not like the attorneys. We must remain disinterested if pure right is to succeed. Of course, the plaintiff and the defendant are interested, but as a juror, you should only concern yourself with the facts in the case. I will now explain to you what the law is in this case. I will explain what is legal and what is not legal in relation to the evidence in this case. I will not instruct you as to the decision you should reach, because it is your duty to reach your own conclusions about the facts in the case, regardless of what you think my opinion may be. After all the evidence has been presented to you, and after the court has read the instructions to the jury, which is the law to be applied to the facts, the attorneys for both sides make their arguments to you. These so-called arguments are really discussions of the evidence as seen from each party's point of view. These discussions are important to you because in them, the attorneys sum up the main points for their side. They may help you recall many details in the testimony that might have left your memory. It is here that the attorneys effect their main service to the juror by organizing the evidence into a blended picture, fitting all the parts into a connected story. No longer is the case a confused number of facts. Naturally, each attorney, being a defender, presents the side most favorable to his client. Remember that these opening and closing arguments of the attorneys are not evidence. You must disregard any statement which you do not think was proved by the evidence, and always disregard any attorney's account about the law of the case if it was not included in the court's instructions. Now that you are ready to retire to the jury room for your deliberation, it is more important than ever that you remain unbiased. This is why, from now until a decision is reached, jurors must always remain together. Most of the time, this will be in the jury room. Naturally, restrictions must be enforced. During deliberation, bailiffs will be in charge of the jury. Both male and female bailiffs are on hand to assist you in every possible way. The bailiff is not only your escort, but when you are in your deliberation, he or she is always just outside the jury room to handle any wants you might have. At meal times, he takes the jurors as a group to and from the eating place during all meals, as well as other times. You must not talk with any outsider. And of course, you cannot read newspapers, books, or magazines, listen to the radio or television. After you retire to the jury room to consider your verdict, how should you proceed? As you choose, of course, but your decision may be made less difficult if you have a wise plan to follow. A foreperson must be selected. Your choice is an important one. The foreperson should give every juror an equal chance to express their views. He or she must guide the deliberation so that it does not stray and become involved in general statements. The deliberation is not a place for confused emotions, but a place for a calm reviewing of facts. As a juror, you must enter into the discussion with an open mind and freely exchange your opinions with the others. Do not hesitate to change your original views if, through your deliberations, you become convinced your views were incorrect. All right. Again, I started at 60, worked my way to 100. All right, so let's go into some Q&A. And this is going to consist of defense questioning, and it's strictly defense question and answer. Okay. So just Q&A. We're going to start off with just strictly Q&A. And again, I'm going to start this at 60 and work my way to 100. Okay. All right. Here we go. Let me give you a word list. You're going to hear newspaper, which is NUP, route, machinist. So the brief for machine is initial M, final N. So just come back for IFT. Benjamin H. Peters Jr., Manhattan Rentals, equipment, salesman, trailers, leasing, subsequent, which is SKWENT, squint, livelihood, college, business, vice president, Mr. Hooker, Mr. Nicholas, insistence, approximately, initial P, final L, title, and looks like that's about it. All right, here we go. So we're going to start with 60, work our way to 100. Ready? At the time of your deposition, you stated that your name was Benjamin H. Peters Jr. Is that your proper name? That is correct. How old are you, Mr. Peters? 49. When did you go to work for Manhattan Rentals? Approximately 4 years ago. Yes, it was 4 years ago, last June. Now you have been earning a livelihood since you left college, haven't you? That is correct. Since that time, you have earned your livelihood as a small loan businessman, among other things. Is that correct? That is correct. As a bill collector, I really have never collected bills. All right. As a machinist, that is correct. As a newspaper route supervisor, that is correct. Prior to going to work for Manhattan Rentals, you were never in the trailer leasing business, were you? No, I wasn't. You never worked for anybody in the trailer leasing business? No. You never worked for anybody in any leasing business. Is that correct? That is correct. You were never in the trailer leasing business, were you? No. You never worked for anybody in the trailer leasing business? No. You never worked for anybody in any leasing business. Is that correct? That is correct. You were never in the business of working for somebody in the business of selling any kind of vehicles or equipment? No, sir. Now, you were hired by the plaintiff as a salesman. Is that correct? That is correct. A salesman in the trailer leasing industry in the sales department. That means the leasing and selling of trailers, doesn't it? The renting and subsequent sale of some of them, yes. On occasion, in the industry, there are original sales too, aren't there? Yes. At the time you were hired, were there other salesmen in the sales department? No. At the time you were hired, Mr. Hooker was the president, was he not? That is correct. And Mr. Nichols was the vice president. Is that correct? That was not the proper title. What was his title? He was selling trailers off the existent house trailer lot. Did he have a title? I don't think so. Now, at the time you were hired, the business of Manhattan Rentals Corporation was the leasing or selling of office and specialty trailers. Was it considered a specialty business? Yes. And you were hired as a salesman. Is that correct? That is correct. Was it your main function to build the business? Yes, it was to learn the business and build it. Now, approximately 6 to 9 months after you were hired, you were put in charge of all sales except for several houses and house accounts. Is that not correct? I believe it was earlier than that. It was before 6 or 9 months? I believe so. Approximately how long after you were hired was it? I would say 4 or 5 months. And you were put in charge of all sales except for several house accounts? That is correct. And this was at your insistence, was it not? That is correct. And isn't it true that during that 4 or 5 months you were working under the guidance of Mr. Hooker and Mr. Nichols or Mr. Nicholas? Well, Mr. Nicholas gave me more help than Mr. Hooker did. All right. Let's go ahead and switch it up. I'm going to give you a little bit of medical Q&A. And again, I will start at 60, work my way to 100. Okay. And this is going to be actually for voice. Okay. You're going to hear psychiatrist, Mitchell Johnson, Qualifications: Dr. Castile examined, examine, examination, evaluate, psychiatrically, Orange County Jail, cooperate, allegedly, 22 rifle, Mr. Johnson, formulate, police officer, which is PLIFer, police report, PLORT, dwelling. All right. So I'm going to stop there. All right. So I'm going to start at 60, work my way to 100. This is going to start with defense questioning, and this is for voice, a court case. Here we go. Ready? Dr. Castile, would you tell us what your occupation is? I'm a psychiatrist presently at Orange County Medical Center and assistant professor of psychiatry, University of Irvine. How long have you been a psychiatrist? I began my training in 1997 and have been in this field ever since. Can we stipulate to his qualifications? Counsel, do you agree with that? Yes, I do. Okay, there will be a stipulation that Dr. Castile is a qualified psychiatrist, Your Honor. So stipulated, Your Honor. Very well. Continue. Dr. Castile, did you examine a Mr. Mitchell Johnson? Yes, I did. Do you recall the date that you examined Mr. Johnson? I first saw him at the Orange County Jail on January 25, 2013. And I saw him again on March 10 of this year. Prior to your examination of Mr. Johnson, did you examine any police reports? Yes, I did. I wonder if you could describe to the court and the jury how you went about examining Mr. Johnson psychiatrically, how you went about it step by step. It's primarily an interview in which I first become satisfied that the person knows why he is there, the purpose of the interview, and to evaluate his ability to cooperate. Often it starts out with a rather detailed history. This is the easiest area for them to talk about, finally leading up to the present offense and his present situation, his present feelings about being in jail. The talking of the detailed history, is that an essential part of your examination? I feel that it is, yes. At the time that you were examining Mr. Johnson, was there anyone else present? No. Do you recall whether or not at the time you examined Mr. Johnson, were you aware of any statements made by Mr. Johnson as they were reported in the police reports? Yes. Were you aware of a statement allegedly made by Mr. Johnson, to wit, "I'm sorry I shot the police officers out there"? Yes. If I may continue, the statement allegedly went on. Mr. Johnson stated, "I just started shooting. It doesn't mean anything to me anyway. The way all the officers were walking around, I could have shot them with a .22 rifle." Were you aware of those statements? I was aware of that statement, yes. Also, prior to your examination of Mr. Johnson, were you aware of the sequence of events that happened during the morning hours of December 6, 2012? I believe I was. Well, were you aware, at least as reported in these police reports, that you had been reading? Yes. Without telling us what your opinion is, doctor, or your conclusion is, as a result of your examination and your investigation, were you able to formulate any type of opinion as to Mr. Johnson's mental condition at a time just prior to the time he fired this rifle into a dwelling home? Yes, I felt that I was. Were you also able to formulate an opinion as to his mental condition just prior to the time he fired at any police officers? Within limits of definite proof, yes. If you recall from reading the reports, the time that he was apprehended, in reading the reports and your examination, were you able to formulate an opinion as to his mental state at the time he was apprehended by the police? Yes, I felt so. In arriving at your opinion, do you base your diagnosis solely on what Mr. Johnson has told you? It's based on what information I had, which certainly included some of the information that I already knew. Do you go through a process of weighing what Mr. Johnson told you against what you have learned from the police reports? Yes, those are taken into consideration. How it correlates with other statements. Now, at the time that you were examined or that you examined Mr. Johnson, did you formulate an opinion as to what extent, if any, was Mr. Johnson's capacity impaired with regard to his ability to know or understand the nature and quality of his acts on December 6, 2012, at or about 2:30 a.m.? Yes, one tends to formulate some opinions. Did you formulate an opinion as to whether or not his ability or capacity to know or understand the quality of his acts was impaired in any way whatsoever? Yes. Can you tell us what you base that opinion on? One bases an opinion on the basis of all the information one has available, based both upon the objective reports and with, more importantly, his own description, which I felt was valid of what was happening at the time. After having examined Mr. Johnson, are you saying and reading these police reports, and I assume that you are taking into consideration his behavior on that evening, do you have any opinion as to whether Mr. Johnson was capable of knowing or understanding the nature and quality of his acts on December 6, 2012, at about 2:30 a.m.? Yes, I believe I have an opinion. Would you tell us what that opinion is, please? It was my opinion that he was in a state of acute alcoholic intoxication, which produced a rather unusual response in the form of an acute psychotic episode with hallucinations, probably delusions, and that he was reacting primarily to this acutely psychotic state and some frightening delusions and hallucinations. On this basis, he was not able to fully comprehend the nature of his own actions. Okay, well, that concludes our live lower class or lower speed class. You guys have a great night, and don't forget, we will be having 6 total live classes throughout the whole week between the lower speeds, mid speeds, and high speeds. Okay, and all of the information and time of the classes is on the actual website. So just go online and it's right on that front page if you scroll down toward the bottom. Okay, so have a great night and I will see you soon.